So don't beat yourself up. I mean, I think this goes for everyone, like how we have a bar of chocolate or something to eat, and then we think, oh no, I've eaten this. Now I have to go work out to burn it. It doesn't need to be like that.
So, hi everyone. Hope that you're all doing well. So today we have an amazing person, and I can't just wait to get on with it and see how what we can learn from her as well as what she has to share as well. So today we have Tormalli Francis, fondly known as Tom, and she's a registered nutritionist at the SLMC, a research assistant at the Health and Wellness Unit of the Faculty of Medicine in the University of Colombo, a Nottingham alumnus, where I had the pleasure of getting to know her at university. She was the student association president, where she was an amazing and inspirational figure, and in a nutshell, a bar of energy. And it's so amazing to be around her. And her what she had done in university really was recognized, and where she was also awarded the Vice Chancellor's Medal. And she has a lot of amazing tips and things to share because with her experience and expertise in the field of nutrition. So without further ado, do join me in welcoming Tormalli Francis. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm doing great, thank you. I hope you're well as well.
Yeah, I mean it's a really crazy time, but I guess we all have to adjust, adapt, and get on with it.
Yes, true.
So in this new normal, Tom, a lot of things have changed, but I think one thing that is almost certain is each of our journeys made has changed to such an extent where we had to change the course of how we do things, perhaps not what we do, but perhaps how we do it as well. So before we get on to talking much more about nutrition and perhaps things like obesity and all, perhaps if you could, it'll be great if you could just perhaps touch on a little bit about your journey and what made you so passionate about nutrition.
Okay, to start it all off, to be very honest, nutrition wasn't my first choice. I think throughout school, like biology was something I was very interested in. I loved studying it and I was good at it. So I was like, okay, it had to be something in biology. But the whole step into nutrition was very like random, I would say. But I'm so glad I chose it because it's something which is evolving every single day. Like there are new research coming on it every single day, which makes it even more interesting because nutrition, what like 10 years ago is nutrition today, and it's
True.
completely different. And that is what it makes very interesting. And I'm so glad I chose it. But yeah, I mean, like going into uni, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do nutrition. Let's see what's gonna happen. Maybe I'll come out being a nutritionist and I'll consult like people changing their habits. But I think that just really changed my perspective and wanting to do something different. And I mean, I would love to do that in the side as well, because I feel like nutrition, the perspective nutrition has taken in so many people has just changed like so badly. And as you said, like given the norm we are in right now with the pandemic, it's not the same. And the misconceptions towards it is also very, very like, there. So we need to like make sure we do things to make sure people know what the right thing is, like when it comes to nutrition, because there's a lot of things out there. So, you need to be very, very careful with what you take in. And also, yeah, but to put it all in a gist, I mean, I didn't really step into nutrition knowing this is something I would love to do. But now that I'm in it, I'm just like, I don't think I would do anything else. And I'm so glad for it, like really glad for it and
I
grateful.
think
Yeah.
that's amazing to hear, Tom. So in a way, you didn't choose nutrition; nutrition chose you.
Yeah, let's put it that way. Let's put it that way. That sounds even better. So yeah, let's put it that
So
way.
I think you touch on a couple of things on how there's so many misconceptions out there around nutrition, and how perhaps a lot of people out there especially need to be wary about how they choose the information, especially given that we live in an era where information is in abundance. So let's take it from there, Tom, and perhaps what are the three biggest myths you have heard, and what you should eat, how you should eat, right, and what not.
I think the first one, which is like the big one, which I heard like, even before studying nutrition or even during studying nutrition and talking to friends, like you come up with these misconceptions, right? But the first one I would say is that carbohydrates is bad for you. Like that's
Okay.
the one, yeah, that's the one which is like, oh, carbs are bad. You should not eat a lot of it. But that's your main fuel for like energy. Like if you're not going to eat carbs, I mean, you'll be running on nothing and you're just going to be sluggish. You're going to be tired. You're not going to have energy like to do the basic things you need to do every day, you know? And I really suggest people not to cut carbs out because there's this whole thing where people just cut carbs to lose weight. I mean, it works. Trust me, it does work. But the thing is, it's not in a good way. Like it's very harmful in the long run to just cut carbohydrates because it's not only carbs, it's not only energy, it's fiber, it's the vitamins, it's the minerals. There's so much in carbohydrates which just really is necessary for like a balanced diet, you know, for
It's
everyday
basically
living.
not sustainable over the longer run.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so it's not sustainable at all. So yeah, carbs are great for you. Like please have them. And like coming from a very South Asian country like Sri Lanka, like our main staple food is rice. And I feel like that's like, you know, there's another problem where we consume a lot of rice, but there's also people who are just eliminating rice now, which is not good. You know, rice is amazing. Like, please eat your rice. And we have so much of curries. We have a lot to like, you know, make it even better, make it fuller, make it tastier, you know. So yeah, that'll be my first one. Second one, let me see. There's so many things like, you know, with myths. But like the second one I would say would be in terms of like calories in, calories out, because this is something I studied even in uni, like how it's what you take in and then you have to expend, you know, like remove it, like calories out. But it doesn't need to always be that way. And when we just focus too much in terms of calories, you're just really removing the, you know, the whole purpose of like eating and just enjoying the food and trying to understand like it's not always about what you eat and what you like, you know, remove. It's not always about that. There's so much more to food. And I mean, like most people who lose weight, they do count their calories, you know, do what you want to do. I mean, do what works for you, but it doesn't need to always be around calories. You know, there's so much more to the food you're eating, like the nutrients, you know, how you're feeding your body, like the variety you're feeding your body, which is important. So it's not always about calories, you know. And yeah, what else? Okay, yeah, another thing I think this is something we've heard almost all the time. It's how breakfast is the most like important meal of the day. Okay, so
I've certainly heard that.
I mean, we like our parents say, like, you know, you have to have your breakfast. It's the start of the day. You've just woken up. But see, some people work well without food in the morning and they might have their brunch, if you want to say like 10, 11, like a bit later towards the day. And that is completely fine. It's not like you have to have breakfast in the morning and be like, okay, this is important, I can't skip it. But it's okay if you want to skip it and you want to eat a meal later on. You know, it's just all about finding what works for you, because I feel like with all these myths, you know, food has become like in a way like very evil, like very like, you know, trying to like make it look all bad. But in reality, it's not bad. It's you just have to learn, you have to appreciate and like get through this journey of like figuring out what you want to eat and have peace with it, I feel like. Because as I said, there's so many like bad things like in terms of nutrition, like foods, you know, they say carbs are bad and sometimes they're like protein is bad and they'll be like fat is bad, you know.
Like
So
almost
it's
on
like
trends. Like there's a protein
yeah,
season, then there's
exactly.
a carb season.
Yeah, I'm like everything is like bad. No, nothing is bad. And that's like something which is coming up like in nutrition field where no food is good or bad, you know. It's all about just including a variety in your meals, trying to include a mix of things and just really enjoying it. Because like we really need to move away from like food in terms of a way of like, oh, I need to be careful, I don't want to gain weight, I don't like, if you want to lose weight, that's great, we can lose weight, but it does not need, you need to like restrict a certain, you know, carb or like a protein. It doesn't need to be that way, you know. I mean, food, like one of the reasons, sorry, I didn't mention this earlier, but one of the reasons I got into nutrition was I love food. Like growing
Amazing.
up, Yeah, no, I mean everyone does, but like growing up in a family where, like, as I said, South Asian, where it's curries and, like, rice and like South Indian food and all that stuff, it just makes food very interesting. And that's another aspect of
Mm.
nutrition, like the culture aspect. So
Yeah, like,
yeah, it's actually very interesting. And I think once, only when I went to Malaysia and I found there's so many cuisines, I was like, my God, this is great. Like,
it's
there's
like
so many nice food.
it's like a food adventure on its own. Like, you go to
Yeah,
different parts of the world and you see, okay, these guys eat carbs differently. I mean, it's a totally different set of carbs. And, it really, so people travel for different reasons. And one of the reasons why people travel is to really explore that variety in food. And really
yeah,
cutting
exactly.
down the types of food that you want to consume, you're kind of missing out that entire experience on its own.
Out on a lot. Like, I mean, I think you can say, like, in Malaysia, especially, there's so many different types of noodles. I'm like, where were all these noodles? Like, I just grew up with pasta and, like, tiny noodles. Like, what is this? Where am I? It was a great experience.
Yeah, like the
Yeah,
Maggi Goreng and whatnot.
exactly. So it was,
So
yeah, I mean,
you touch on several important points there, Tom, and I think these were really, really important. And I think one point that I want to really pick on is how you mentioned that, yes, carbs are not the evil person out there, but it's really about getting that right balance of, carbs to fibers to proteins and whatnot. So I remember, like, back in the day, like, this is the size of a portion. I was like, whoa. And that really hit me. So based on what you just mentioned on, getting that right balance, and importantly, I think it's also important to understand that every person almost metabolizes the food differently. How would you advise
yeah.
a person in terms of who is in that journey of finding that right balance that works for them? Because for some people, like myself included, like, I need to eat a lot of carbs. For some people, say they eat a little carb, they eat, say, if they eat the same amount of carbs another person eat, they'll easily put on weight, and
Yeah.
obviously it's a matter of concern for them. And likewise, how would you advise a person who's, say, in that journey of finding that right balance?
So to be honest, this was like very individual. So like, I
Mm,
mean, I wouldn't know until I meet the person and like assess them for their a lot of things. Just assess them and see like what type of meals or what type of a proportion they would be suitable for their life. So I really can't say for one person fits all, but I mean, I would just honestly advise people to include variety. I think
mm,
that is something I really stand for in terms of nutrition and variety. Like, include a variety of nutrition in your meals every day. Um, I mean, I'm trying not to go into like portion sizes because it differs, as you said, with each
yeah.
and every person. Yeah. But I would say include varieties, even if it's carbs. There's so much of variety with carbs, and there's so much of variety like fruits and vegetables. Oh my God. Let me just say vegetables. They are, I mean, the variety we have is just, I mean, I never realized this until I studied nutrition, and now I'm like, in the field. I
Mm,
just realized there's so much of variety which we can include in our diets, but sometimes we just like shun away from it and we're like, okay, let me just not try it. But you just trying the variety and finding what you like to eat, that's also important. I'm not
mm,
saying if you don't like something, don't eat it. I mean, eat it. Like, I'm not going to say that, that's not right. But just include a variety in terms of your vegetables, your carbs, your proteins, and try having a balanced meal, like, a bit of carbs, and then your protein, and then your vegetables, so that it's a balanced meal. Like, usually, like, we have this plate model. And I think this is very common in it's usually like, rather than going for like portion sizes, or it's like estimating, oh, this is how much I need to eat and this is how much I have not to eat or whatnot. It's best you include like it's half a plate of vegetables and the other two you split it with your protein and your carbs. So that
mm,
is like a rough estimate, which I would tell people, like people who are trying to change their eating habits and trying to
mm,
make it a bit better. So I would suggest you go with that and just try including a variety. I think that's where the whole interest and the shift starts. Because once you really realize you can include variety, you can cook things differently and try out things differently. Just really, really changes the whole game plan, like in terms of what you want to eat. And yeah, I mean, just about that, have variety. That's like the best option I would go to. I mean, honestly, I'm being a nutritionist. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, my nutrition is perfect. It's not. It's not. We're all learning. We're all moving towards something is good for us, is good for our lifestyle, which is very important. So, I mean, for my case, like including variety has just changed so much. Like, I mean, if you see my page, like, I always try including a variety because it really makes it interesting. It makes me want to have a good relationship with food. Okay. Yeah. You got to have a good relationship with food, with what you're eating every day, because you can't really have that bad relationship with food. Like food is something you have every day and it's with your family, it's by yourself, like whatever it is, it's so important you have a good relationship with food. So add variety, have a good relationship with food. It's all a learning curve, but it takes one step at a time to go through it. So don't worry about it. You'll get there.
I think it's really sage advice over there, Tom, because I think we touched on this several times. Like people tend to polarize at different ends of that spectrum, and having a variety really helps to have that balance in terms of what we want to eat and how it makes us feel as well. And I think what you mentioned is even more important because there's so much advice that like especially on social media where people may tend to blindly follow it without realizing it, that like you touched on it as well, it at times could be quite personal, and what may be tailored for one person may not really fit you or any other person out there. So also do a shout out to NutriTom. So if you have not followed her page, do follow her page. And she kind of shows that, she basically that point on, how that variety really helps. So do check her page out as well. So along those lines, Tom, I think something that really caught my eye was something, basically a paper that you all had published, and which is based on, like, of course, you and your team, which is based on some of the work that you all had done on COVID and how it affected obesity. I believe this was it was on the Sunday Times on the 18th of July. So it'll be great if you could perhaps shed some of the key learnings from that entire study on how COVID, how working from home, and how it really impacted, created obesity and whatnot. I'm really curious, and let's hear it from Tom herself.
Yeah, so this research was very interesting. It was something because this was, I think, our third lockdown, and this was when my supervisor and my boss, third lockdown. So my boss decided, why not we try this out? Because we had a different research idea last year when this whole thing started. So this year we thought, okay, we'll just see how COVID has, had an impact on people, because it has made drastic changes for sure. So we decided we'll assess them in terms of like their eating habits, like physical activity, their sitting time, and just like a various whole survey. It's quite lengthy, and it was lengthy, and we tried sharing it through all the social media across the nation because we wanted a good proportion of all the ethnicity, like our Sinhalese, the Sri Lankan Tamil, the Indian Tamil, and the Moors, the Muslims. So we really wanted to cover like the whole nation and try to have a balanced perspective in terms of how it's impacted them. So the paper we published was on the physical activity and the screen time and all that aspect of it, and weight gain. So in our research findings, it showed that because obviously screen time has increased abundantly because of, school online, work from home and all that. So it has intensively increased. And your physical activity has reduced, which makes sense because, you spend 9 hours in front of your laptop working or school. And then the next thing you do is you rest, you're on the couch, you're watching TV. So that's, even more screen time. So I think the problem with the whole COVID thing was usually we commute to work or we drive to work and there was some type of movement, because people usually, this is another thing, people usually think physical activity is, you need to work out for 15 to 30 minutes. that's physical activity. That's how you move.
Mm,
But in not necessarily the way you commute, the way you
mm.
move like from one place to another at work, you're walking around the building, anything. It's all
Taking the
movement. It's
stairs, I
all,
mean, it's basically a
yeah,
lifestyle.
exactly. Yeah, so everything is movement, and that's what's missing. You're home, you're in your comfort, and you don't really move much, and that has obviously led to weight gain. Because
Mm,
when you come into the nutrition aspect of it, people have like what do you say, like reduced the thought like of being aware of what to eat, and like as I said, variety that's like gone out, because obviously you're not going to get produce easily as you did before, because you're on a
mm,
lockdown. Like you're not going to get your veggies, you're not going to get your meat as accessible as you did before.
mm,
And there are a lot of aspects, and I think I remember pointing this out to you as like mental health as well, because mental health and your mental health well-being really, really, really coexist with the nutrition and your eating habits. Like you could just sit in a place, you can binge. I mean, this is a very sensitive topic, but it's something you can't say one thing and just like process it through. Like
mm,
there is a lot of like eating problems because of your mental health, like what you're going through the pandemic, because it hasn't been easy, or it hasn't been the most smooth sail, because it's been difficult. You're locked up at home, you're like in front of the screen, your screen time's increasing, your physical
mm,
activity really, really does burst your mood, but you're not taking part in that. You can't go out for a walk. And then one thing was, because in Sri Lanka we couldn't go out for a walk even, that was not possible. Like we had to stay indoors.
mm,
And that's also been like a very like a barricade in terms of less physical activity, more screen time, and then your eating has gone off, so leading to weight gain. But just
mm,
all in all, the research just shows that like how I think governments, the public, like they need to make up programs where they can really, really push people to try doing physical activity at home during at these times, because the safest place is at home, obviously, because of
mm,
safety measures and everything. So people, I think the government, sorry, should like really do like programs in terms of like trying to improve the physical activity and encouraging people to move inside their homes. And I
mm,
mean, it's easy for me to say to increase movement because it really depends on their space. It really depends on availability of resources and everything, which is very understandable, that's why it needs more thinking, more thought, more research
mm,
on what aspects or how to go about it.
mm.
But yeah, there's more research coming out of
Really
this
looking
survey.
forward to it. And
Yeah, hopefully we get to publish it. So let's see.
so
Yeah, but
there were several really, really important points that you mentioned there, Tom, and on how being physically fit and being physically active and how movement really helps to contribute towards that. And I think perhaps that's something even myself as well, perhaps undervalued to some extent. Like I don't feel fit unless I go out and have a half an hour jog, as you touched on as well. So it's just sometimes just having say so many steps a day, or just climbing up and down the stairs also really contributes to feeling good, keeping those, staying fit and whatnot, and basically that mobility all in all really helps. So something that I think we've seen as well, and I think fortunately companies in Sri Lanka have realized, and I think even they too have really taken measures to say launch these physical fitness online virtual physical fitness sessions to ensure that it's not all that screen time but also about staying fit. So I think that's really nice to see, and really a big kudos to Tormalli, yourself, and the entire team, of course, for really
you.
focusing this research in the Sri Lankan context. Because myself being a scientist, you see, there's so much research out there targeting different, basically people in different geographic regions, and it's about time that we have more research being focused in our geographic region, because it's also important to understand that yes, while we as human beings we have a lot of similarities, the regional elements also do cause some differences, and I think it is really important that there are a good amount of work being done to understand the Sri Lankan context of things, because that really helps perhaps companies, governments, whatnot, really understand how best it would be to cater these programs based on data that is coming from Sri Lankan citizens. And I think that is really, really amazing stuff, Toms. And I really do hope that yourself and your team really keep up that, because I'm as a Sri Lankan myself, I'm sure that everyone out there also wants to be the best version of themselves based on data that is uh, coming from other Sri Lankans, and not perhaps no, I'm not discrediting data that is, say, coming from the UK or the Europe or anywhere else, but rather uh, it's like basically taking the best parts of everything and really tailoring it to our case, because after all, there are some nuances in different regions that perhaps work better when with our local data. So that's amazing stuff, Tom. So one more thing that really caught my attention there, Tom, was how the entire COVID and work from home part really contributed towards obesity. So I think there's a lot of social buzz on social media on how working from home causes so much, like how it affects mental health and whatnot. Perhaps obesity is also really a metabolic disease, and a
Mhm.
lot of people don't basically they look at it very differently, almost with a stink eye in some sense. But I think it's about time that people really do take obesity quite seriously, because it could be anyone's parents, it could be anyone's grandparents who suffer from obesity. But
Mhm.
only the people who suffer from obesity would understand the challenges that are associated with it. So as a generation that is coming up, how would you, and of course based on your learnings and under what you have understood as well, how would you advise people from not falling into that obesity trap? Because this, a lot of people may not, it may not be a matter of concern now, but it sure will be a matter of concern in 5 years time, 10 years time, 25 years down the line. So how would you advise that case, Tom?
So like obesity has been it's been there for a very long time, and I think the prevalence is increasing. Like it's increasing very, very, with a high speed. Not only in our country but worldwide, in every other country. It's a serious problem, and I
Mm,
think being in Sri Lanka, I feel like Sri Lankans need to address it. It's a very, because obesity will lead onto all the other diseases,
mm,
and complications, which makes even more difficult, as you mentioned, because that's like a pathway to more chronic diseases. But I mean, in terms of advising people with obesity, I feel like we really need to go to the root of the problem. Like, child obesity is also very prevalent in most countries. I'm not sure if there are current data in Sri Lanka where they're like, trying to research on the prevalence, because malnutrition is a problem in Sri Lanka,
mm,
very big problem. And that's when you say there's a double burden, there's malnutrition and then there's obesity. So like it's crazy to think how malnutrition and obesity can coexist, because like malnutrition is not getting enough nutrition, but obesity, you're getting over nutrition. So like it's
mm,
crazy to think through, but as you going back to the point, like obesity in Sri Lanka really needs to be addressed. I think the younger generation really needs it in terms of taking care of their health. And they need to really realize that you don't need to blame them for them weight gaining, because there are so many factors, so many, not only lifestyle factors like environmental, but genetics, your disease. You could have PCOS. There's so many things which really, really affect, having obesity. So you can't really like, I think we should really move away from the pinpoint, because this is something which is also very evident in Sri Lanka, where a woman or a man, when they're obese, they're like, just lose weight, because it's not like that. It's a very, very sensitive topic. Like you can't just
mm.
go up to them and be like, you need to lose weight. If it was that easy, they would have done it by now.
Exactly. It's
So
like
it,
only the
yeah,
person who is in those shoes would understand how hard it is. Yes, food is one
exactly.
factor, but there's so many other factors
So
that really
many,
contribute to
so
that.
many. And it all started, I think, them reaching out for help, like going to a doctor, going to an endocrinologist or anything, what specialist you think is fit for you, going up to them and coming up with like a plan to, improve your eating habit. You're all about improving your eating habit, try to make changes and small changes including a good nutrition, nourishing your body well, small changes, moving away from certain foods and increasing your physical activity. Increasing physical activity is a big, I think both go same ways, food and physical activity. It really needs your push. Like you need to really be ready for it and be like, I want to make a change. I want to do better. As you said, everyone wants to be their best self. So, everyone can. There are so many people out there who have changed for the better and have seen so much of difference. But and yeah, sorry, going back to the root cause, like we need to start from educating people,
Well said.
educating people on the importance of like your nutrition, importance of physical activity, and not see it as a way in terms of like something which is like a big weight on your shoulders, like like you have to do this. Like educate them, teach them, tell them what's the steps you have to take, the moves, like the steps you have to take in terms of improving your nutrition and your physical activity. So yeah, but it really just changes a lot of things in terms of obesity, because I think one thing is that as I'm going back to this point because it's so important, because like most people get blamed for it, which I don't think should be it. We need to go through this in a very, very less harmful way. This is where mental health also comes in terms of your body image, and there's so many factors. So I think just go ask for help. That's for people who are trying to make changes. And if we were to go back to the root cause of it, educate people, not the mindset we had with nutrition years ago, but with the mindset we have now. The whole time I've been talking is having a good relationship with food and having a good relationship with yourself, which is very important, and learning through that. And this does not happen overnight. It takes time. It takes a long time. I'm going in a very, not the right way, which people would go, clinicians would go, but I feel like for a good change, for a long-term change, you really need to do it this way, where it's a positive change and it's not very like a negative way of changing your life, but a way more positive and more in terms of tuning yourself into who you want to be, what you want to change, your eating, your physical activity. So it is long-term and not like few months. So yeah, and don't restrict yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. I am like sounding like a very this thing, but it's important to just
I think it makes a lot of sense there, Tom, because like it resonates with me quite well as well. So it's about, because at the end of the day, we all want to be the best versions of ourselves, right? And it's hard to do that when we are not comfortable in our own skin. So like things like obesity, like obviously restricts people from doing things that they would otherwise normally do. And I feel that one of the first things is self-awareness, understanding that, okay, I need to make this change for me because I want to be a better version of myself so that I could help other people. So I think I also feel that, having that self-awareness is like it's really, really important, because I think that's the first step before, of course, adding on to really everything else that you mentioned as well, because having that self-awareness and wanting to make that change really, that's the fire that's going to start off everything. And like, especially
the thing is, it's not going to be easy. I'm sorry, but it's not going to be easy. Yeah, but that's the thing. You have to take it a day by day and just really figure it out slowly. And understand yourself more. And everyone's on a journey. To be very, very open, like even I'm like, I struggle sometimes. And it's all like a learning curve in terms of trying to find what suits you. I'm going back to that over and over again, but it's really individualized and really what is best for you and your lifestyle, because not everyone's life is the same. Not everyone's lives with people and everything, it's not the same. So yeah, I'm sorry.
No worries. I think it's good that we're stressing this because it is important at the end of the day. So again, touching on that point again there, Tom. So one, it is new, it is really personalized, and two, importantly, it's really a journey. The person's physical health and let's say obesity or anything else related, it's really a journey and not really a destination. And once they, touching on the point you mentioned as well, once they understand that, like, it's those little steps that really help. And sometimes having massive goals right at the beginning can be a bit off-putting at the beginning and perhaps may even take them off track. But taking those little steps really does help. So how would you perhaps tell a person who's, say, for instance, like, I have this goal of, say, losing 5 kilograms, 10 kilograms, for instance, hypothetically, that 10 kilograms is a massive amount. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, 10 kilograms could be a massive amount, but that number itself could be quite daunting to start off with, to take that first step. So how would you advise someone who's at that stage, say they have, all right, they're self-aware, they've understood that they need to improve, they set themselves a goal, and now they need to get through that first hurdle? How
Okay,
would you
so
advise
okay.
them?
To advise them, I would just start off by just saying, I mean, as you say, change does not happen overnight. And the most important thing is being patient with yourself and being patient with this journey you're trying to like move. Because you've already, as you said, you're self-aware, you know you have to make this change for the better. So I mean, congratulations, you've made that step. You've made to want to change, and that it's a very difficult stage, to be honest.
Yeah, for
And to come
sure.
into that stage and starting it off, I would say be patient with yourself. Take it in terms of nutrition, take it every meal at a time, be more mindful, be more thoughtful of what you're eating. I think one thing we struggle is we sometimes we tend to overeat, in a way of an emotion or whatever you're going through. So take it one meal at a time. Think about what you want to cook, what you want to think through it. I think just that's the most important thing. Like, I'm not talking about meal prep, but I'm talking more of like being more mindful with what you want to eat, what you want to cook, and spending time with it. I think that's also very important. Now, say if you're trying to change your eating habits and you want to include something different, look up recipes, look up different types of recipes, different cuisines where you want to try, and which includes a lot of veggies, a lot of variety. And this would help you to slowly make the changes you want to, And being mindful, going back, is trying not to take too much emotion. And when you're eating, like, make sure you're enjoying it, make sure it's filling, and just, every time, like, reflect on what you're eating and how it's making you feel. Like, if you're doing something, okay, I don't like that food, so okay, I won't have that. If you like something else, okay, I'll have it again this week. It's it all comes down to every meal, every day. Take it every day at a time. Physical activity is difficult. You need it, with food as well. You need that bit of motivation, but just going back, be patient with yourself, be patient with your journey, and just know that the work you do every single day will definitely add up. It will definitely add up for the weeks to come, the months to come. I mean, you're doing great. Just keep doing it. And as you said, as I said before, reaching out for help is very important. Now, for example, obese person, you need to realize you need to make the change. And I would highly suggest not to just randomly Google things up or randomly like come up with things on the net, like things on social media. Like, there's so much of detox teas and there's so much of like slimming teas. Like, I see this in the supermarket and I'm like, you're crazy, like really crazy, for this to be out in the market, to really brainwash people to thinking that this works when it doesn't. Like, you need to really nourish your body. You need to really eat and include variety, that you're feeding your body well, because like this body, you're living this life, sometimes we really ignore it. And we ignore it, we don't give care to it, but sooner or later you realize it's too late. So it's better you start today. And even if it's going out and eating and having your favorite meal, go have it, eat it, just don't
I
don't
think
restrict.
I think I think you touched on so many important points there, Tom. I think really circles back to how we really started. Changing that relationship that we have with our food. Food is not
Yeah.
bad, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's about how we interact with our food, how make food our friend, so that
Mhm.
we could choose how we want to interact with it, and of course, at the end of the day, make it someone who you could work with and helps you become the best version of yourself. And I think you hit, you nailed it right there, Tom.
Yeah, food
So
is not your enemy, it's your friend. So like, take it a day at a time. You'll be best friends soon.
and one more thing there, Tom. So we touched on that. We touched on nutrition in general. We touched on obesity. We touched on debunk several myths. And I'm like I just also want to touch on diabetes a bit, but I understand that that is a topic on its own, and that could be a separate 2-hour lecture at the university. But for all the diabetic patients out there, who I'm sure who are to some extent, some people are, I'm sure, who are also suffering from obesity, how would
Mhm.
you advise them in terms of how, one, they should treat themselves, and two, how they should not beat themselves up?
Yeah. So diabetes and like a lot of NCDs is also becoming very prevalent in our region, like in South Asia, for instance, especially India, Sri Lanka, where like, it's increasing consistently. But with someone with diabetic, I would suggest, because my dad's diabetic and I've seen him restrict so much, but to a point now where I can't. It's not even my dad. It's mostly my mom trying to restrict him from some foods because just to be careful. Like you need to be
Mm,
careful, but yeah, you need to restrict some foods obviously when you're diabetic. But it's also just trying to not have that like, oh, I shouldn't eat this, I shouldn't eat that. But it's coming back to the whole thing where include more whole grain, include more vegetable, include good fat. Like fat is something we move away sometimes. The good fat, like the tuna, or like
mm,
all that fatty fish, which is great for your diet. So moving towards that and incorporating that into your diet, and physical activity again is a very big proportion of for diabetic people. Like you need to move, you need to get in some type of movement every day. Go for a walk. Walk is sufficient. I mean, a walk has so many benefits, which is so undervalued most of the time, because they're like, oh, you need to go for a run. No, you just go for a walk, a 30-minute walk where you're just really moving yourself. And and again, I mean, coming back to this, it's very personalized to each one and their needs, and a lot of other things in terms of their medication, and just trying to make a meal or make a plan which is suitable for their life.
mm.
Yeah. But as you said, diabetes itself is a very huge topic. But just to like put it all together, just it really depends on the individual, and really just trying to personalize it for the person. And don't I mean, it all comes back to the relationship with food, with all these diseases, obesity, diabetes. Like you're like trying to like avoid certain foods, avoid, which is, I mean, again, you have to avoid, but in terms of diabetic, but don't let not that be the only thing. Let not
Mm.
that cloud your mind and be like, oh, this is what I have to do. But in reality, you don't need to do that in terms of your mental relationship with food. But yeah, I mean, that's about it. I don't know. I mean, I can't give like a whole um a
I think
generalized one as I
I think it makes a lot of sense there, Tom, as well, because it's not really a off the page, you know, something
yeah.
that you could just give it to everyone, but it's really, in a way, that's why people do consult nutritionists for a reason. People do consult doctors for a reason. Otherwise, they would
Yeah.
just read a page off a book and give it to
Just read
everyone.
as a like read online, Google's a friend.
So
But
I think
no.
that makes a lot of sense, and especially like the generation that is like, yes, we have do have a generation who is already unfortunately suffering from diseases such as this, but also it is also important that you mention how important it is to educate people about this. And I really do hope that this conversation really helps in terms of educating not only perhaps the current generation, but also say the generation that is going to enter the workforce in a couple of years, because I believe that is when people may tend to focus less on themselves and their personal well-being. So I really do hope that this conversation really helps a lot of people. But before we really wrap up, Tom, I would like to ask you one last question. So, to all our viewers and listeners out there, what would be your parting advice in terms of how they could not only enjoy their food, enjoy their relationship with their food, but also use food as a means to become a better person, to feel comfortable with themselves, and importantly, become the best version of themselves?
Okay, so as you like just mentioned before, like how our working force people coming in, and I feel like our mindset with everything happening right now, it's all become like a race. It's all become like, I need to do this, I need to work, I need to work, 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 you know. But you really need to change your, you know, your perspective in terms of like, you know, it's not about work all the time. It is, of course, but it's also about taking care of yourself. And if I were to say something about nutrition or about your food you eat, I would also just say, just going back, enjoy the food. Make sure you're not restricting where it becomes very, very harmful in the long run, where it's just not about restricting, you losing weight, and then like, you know, you wanting to eat the food again. That, you know, it's not supposed to be like that, because that's the whole cycle. Like, you know, you restrict and then you lose weight, you're doing good, everything, and then you're craving for the food. So that, you know, you don't want to keep going in that circle. You really just want to make healthy changes in terms of the food you're eating. And I mean, that's something in the field of nutrition we have to change, especially in, I feel like in Sri Lanka has to change as well. Like, you know, it's not about just restricting a certain type of food and you lose weight. You're losing weight. Yes, you're losing weight, but your relationship with food is just bad. It's harmful, you know, and food is something which we have to keep eating for the rest of our lives. So, you know, might as well it be a good relationship. So don't beat yourself up. I mean, I think this goes for everyone, you know, like how we have a bar of chocolate or something to eat, and then we think, oh no, I've eaten this, now I have to go work out to burn it. It doesn't need to be like that, you know.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying your food, just enjoy the food, and if you want to work out, move your body, that's different. But don't have that mindset where you're like, oh, I've eaten this, I feel bad, I feel guilty, I'm gonna go work out for like 1 hour, burn it off. No, that's a very, very harmful. Reflect, reflect, and think it through and be like, I'm going to have this chocolate. I'm going to enjoy it. Maybe next time I'll have a smaller piece, you know? So it's all about your thoughts. It's all about, you know, changing it with yourself and really having a good, healthy relationship with food when you want to make good eating habits, you know. And I mean, I saw your face, you know, when this happens with everyone. You eat something and you're guilty. You don't need to, like, you know, food is great, and there's so much out there, food to taste, so much. It's not only about, you know, like you're eating it, you're nourishing it, but you're also tasting it, you know. It's meals with your family, it's meals with your friends, you know. You go out, you have dinner with friends, you know, you're talking, you're having that connection, and it's so much more, you know. Food is way so much more, which I have come to realization. Trust me, I did not have this realization even when I was studying in uni. I was like, okay, it's all about carbs, proteins, how it works in your body, you know, that's it. But no, like food is so much more, and it's interesting. It's more like a story, you know, with when there's food. Yeah, it's really a story. And I mean, I'm grateful I've come into realization, and I hope more people come into the realization where food is your friend, it's not your enemy, and it's going to be your best friend. So, you know, might as well enjoy it.
I think that was like so deep there, Tom. It was like so deep.
Thank
No,
you.
because
Yeah.
because it makes a lot of sense. You just think about it. Some of the best conversations, say everyone out there, say would have probably had with their friends or family or anyone. There's probably food there in the table. They're
See?
probably eating or drinking something. So by really changing that relationship with food, like not only are they like not only are they not restricting themselves, but they're also giving themselves a license to enjoy,
Yeah.
giving themselves a license to not only enjoy the food but also enjoy life. Just imagine going to a nice restaurant and say, oh, I can order this, I can order this, I can order this because I need to work out this to these many days to lose it. But like you very correctly said, I think it is so important as well, by changing that relationship. Okay, if you want to work out, you work out, but if you want to eat and enjoy, and not having it really connected, and having it, in two separate sections, that really helps to not only change that relationship but also have a better have a better relationship with ourselves as well, because then at the end of the day it also helps us to be comfortable with in our own skin. So thanks a lot for that, Tom. I think that was, I learned a lot. And I hope
So
that this was quite useful to everyone else as well. And if you all have not done so already, do go do follow Tom's page, NutriTom. I think I follow her page, and there's so much to learn. And I really do hope that everyone improves their relationship with food. And thanks a lot, Tom, for sharing this amazing
thank you
advice.
for having me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed and learned from this discussion just as much as I did. If you have not done so already, I really appreciate if you'd subscribe to the channel below, and do like the video if you feel that you found it quite useful. Also, do let me know in the comments which part of it that you found the most useful, as well as what are the other areas that we could perhaps discuss, and other areas that we could explore. Also, let me know in the comments below other areas that I could improve as well. So until next time,